Plugged in the USB drive, and my daughter-in-law's voice was still ringing in my ears. "Just throw it out, Dad. It's junk." That was 40 minutes ago. Now I was sitting in the parking lot of Morrison & Weblaw Usons, hands on the steering wheel, engine off, staring at nothing. My wife had been gone 11 days. I should back up. My name is not important. What matters is that I was married to the same woman for 41 years. 41 years of Tuesday dinners and bad TV, and the way she always left her reading glasses on top of the refrigerator, never anywhere else, always the top of the refrigerator. Her name was Evelyn. She was 67 years old when she died of a heart condition that we had known about for 3 years, and that she had, characteristically, refused to let slow her down for even a single afternoon. We had one son. I'll call him my son because that's what he is, even now, even after everything. He is 38 years old. He works in commercial real estate. He married a woman named Cassandra 6 years ago, and I want to be precise when I say this. I did not dislike Cassandra from the beginning. I tried. Evelyn tried harder than I did. But there was something in the way Cassandra looked at our house, at the 4-bedroom colonial we'd owned since 1987, the one with the big oak in the backyard that my son used to climb. Something in the way her eyes moved around the rooms that always felt less like appreciation and more like calculation. I told myself I was imagining it. I was not imagining it. The 3 years after Evelyn's diagnosis were strange years. She was on medication. She had checkups every 6 weeks, and the cardiologist, a careful, serious man named Dr. Peterson, said that with management, she could have many good years ahead. She seemed to believe him. She started a garden in the backyard. She joined a book club. She drove herself to every single appointment and never once asked me to come, which I thought at the time was independence, and now understand was something else entirely. My son and Cassandra started coming around more often after the diagnosis. Every Sunday, then twice during the week. Then it seemed like Cassandra had a key and was letting herself in while I was at my woodworking club on Thursday mornings. I came home once to find her sitting at the kitchen table with Evelyn, papers spread between them, and when I walked in, Cassandra gathered them up quickly. Not quickly enough to look natural, but quickly enough that I couldn't read anything. I asked Evelyn about it that night. She said it was nothing, insurance paperwork. She squeezed my hand and changed the subject to the garden. I let it go. I wish I could tell you I pushed harder. I didn't. Evelyn died on a Thursday morning in February. Peacefully, the hospice nurse said, which I have come to understand is the word used when there is nothing violent to report. She had not told me how close the end was. The cardiologist later told me she had known for at least 6 weeks and had specifically asked him not to inform me directly. When he said that, I sat in his office for a long moment and didn't say anything. "She wanted to protect you," he said carefully. "I know," I said. And I did know. That was the thing. It was entirely like her. The funeral was on a Sunday. Our son gave a eulogy that made 3 people cry. Cassandra wore a black dress and stood very close to him and occasionally touched his arm. My brother-in-law flew in from Tucson. My sister made a casserole that is still in my freezer. 2 days after the funeral, my son and Cassandra came over to help. They said with going through some of Evelyn's things. I was grateful at the time. I was not up to it alone. We worked through her closet, her bedside table, the cedar chest at the foot of the bed. Cassandra was efficient in a way that made me uncomfortable, moving quickly, making neat piles of donate and keep, asking questions like, does anyone actually need this, about things I was not ready to make decisions about. At some point, Cassandra found a small fabric pouch tucked in the bottom drawer of Evelyn's old sewing cabinet. Inside was a USB drive, the small kind, rectangular, dark blue, the kind you could buy at any drugstore. Nothing written on it. Cassandra turned it over in her hand. "Old stuff," she said. "Probably just photos or something. You want to keep it?" She was already moving toward the trash bag. "I'll take it," I said. She shrugged and handed it over. I put it in my shirt pocket and forgot about it for 2 days. I found it again when I was doing laundry. I almost ran it through the wash. Instead, I set it on the nightstand, and it sat there for another day while I moved through the house, doing the things you do when you are newly widowed, signing papers, calling insurance companies, accepting casseroles, nodding at things people said to me that I did not fully hear. On the fourth day, I sat down at my desktop computer, the old one in the corner of the bedroom that Evelyn used to call my command center, because I refused to get a laptop, and I plugged in the drive. One folder, named simply For Robert, my own name, in her handwriting, or what passed for her handwriting in a folder name. The careful way she always capitalized, even in digital things. I sat very still for a moment. Then I opened it. There were 3 files, a video file, a PDF, and a document titled Instructions. Please read first. I read the document first. It was 2 pages, single-spaced. I know Evelyn's voice the way I know the sound of that oak tree in the backyard in a windstorm, and every word on that page was her voice, her exact rhythm, the way she put a comma where other people would put a period, because she always had one more thing to add. She wrote that she had been watching something happen for almost 2 years. She wrote that she had not told me because she knew me. She used the word knew like it meant something specific, and she said that if she had told me, I would have confronted our son directly, and that a direct confrontation would have destroyed the evidence before it could be documented. She said she needed time. She said she was sorry for the time it cost us. She wrote that beginning approximately 22 months earlier, small amounts had begun disappearing from our joint savings account. Not large amounts at first, $80, $120, then larger. She had not said anything. Instead, she had opened a separate account at a different bank. Citizens Bank on Hadley Street, not the Wells Fargo where we kept our joint accounts, and had quietly begun moving money into it. A financial attorney named Mr. Webb of Morrison & Webb had been helping her document everything. She had signed documents. She had kept records. She wrote, "The account has your name on it, Robert. Only yours. The pin is the month and year we got married. I think you still remember that." I had to stop reading. I sat with my hands in my lap for a while. Outside, a car went past. A dog barked somewhere on the street. The cursor blinked on the screen. Then I read the rest. She wrote that she believed our son had not acted alone. She wrote that she did not want me to hate him. She was precise about this. She said it twice, once near the beginning of the letter and once at the very end, as if she knew I would skim and she needed me to see it in both places. She said that she believed our son was in a situation he did not fully understand how to get out of, and that the goal was not punishment, but protection. The account at Citizens Bank. The documents with Mr. Webb. The paper trail she had spent 22 months quietly assembling. The last line of the document was, "I left the USB in the sewing cabinet because I knew you would find it and she would not look there twice." She never cared about anything that wasn't worth money. That was Evelyn, right to the end. One more thing to add. I watched the video file next. She had recorded it on her phone, sitting in the kitchen at the table, the window behind her, afternoon light on her face. She looked tired in a way I recognized now, as the kind of tired she had been hiding from me for months. She had her hands folded on the table the same way she always folded them in church. She said my name. She said she was sorry for doing it this way. She said she needed me to go to Morrison & Webb and ask for Mr. Webb specifically and give them her name and they would know what to do. Then she looked directly into the camera and said, "Robert, I need you to understand that I am not angry, not at our son, not at her. I am only tired and I am grateful, and I want you to take care of the house and the oak tree and yourself in that order." She almost smiled when she said in that order. Almost. I watched the video 3 times, then I sat in the dark for a long time. The next morning I called Morrison & Webb before 8:30. The receptionist said Mr. Webb was in with a client. I said my wife's name was Evelyn and that she had asked me to call. There was a pause. Then she said, "Please hold." And 3 minutes later a man came on the line with a careful, measured voice and said, "Mr. Hartley, I've been expecting your call. Can you come in today?" I was there by 10. Mr. Webb was younger than I expected, mid-50s. gray at the temples. The kind of suit that meant he was serious without needing to prove it. He shook my hand and led me to a conference room and shut the door. And then he opened a folder that was thicker than I expected. Evelyn had been thorough. That was the only word for it. There were 22 months of bank statements. There were screenshots, printed, dated, signed by a notary, of online transfers. There were 2 signed affidavits from a neighbor of ours, Mrs. Boltu, Palermo, who had witnessed my son entering our home with Cassandra on 4 Thursday mornings while I was at woodworking club, each time leaving with banker's boxes. There was a signed statement from a branch manager at Wells Fargo confirming that 3 account changes to authorized signatories, had been made using Evelyn's signature on dates when Mr. Webb had already documented that Evelyn was in a medical appointment across town. That last one, I had to ask Mr. Webb to repeat it. Someone signed her name, I said. On 3 separate documents, he said. Yes. I put my hands flat on the table. What happens now, I said. It wasn't really a question. Now, Mr. Webb said, and he picked up his phone and made a call that I only half heard. We contact the county district attorney's office, and I would suggest, Mr. Hartley, that you not speak to your son or his wife until you hear from me. Can you do that? I thought about Evelyn at the kitchen table. I thought about the way she had gathered those papers quickly, but not quickly enough. I thought about 41 years and Tuesday dinners and reading glasses on top of the refrigerator. I can do that, I said. What followed was not fast. I want to be honest about that. It was 4 months of phone calls and documents and 2 meetings with a detective from the Financial Crimes Unit named Sergeant O'Coffer, who was precise and patient and never once made me feel like I was wasting his time. My son retained an attorney. Cassandra retained a separate attorney, which told me something. During those 4 months, I kept going to woodworking club on Thursday mornings. I kept watering Evelyn's garden. I kept the USB drive in the nightstand drawer, next to her reading glasses, which I had not moved from the top of the refrigerator until the week after I met with Mr. 12 Webb, and then I moved them deliberately, carefully, to the drawer, because I wanted them near. My son called twice. I did not answer. He left voicemails that I listened to once each and did not return. He sounded confused. He sounded in the second voicemail a little frightened. I sat with how that made me feel for a long time. It made me feel several things at once, most of which had no clean names. Cassandra did not call. The resolution, when it came in stages. The district attorney's office filed charges: forgery, financial exploitation of a vulnerable adult, unauthorized use of financial accounts. Cassandra's attorney negotiated. There were numbers discussed that I will not repeat because they are still moving through the courts. What I can tell you is that the house is mine. The account at Citizens Bank, the one with the pin that is the month and year Evelyn and I got married, was transferred to my name without dispute. It was more than I expected. Evelyn had been moving money for 22 months with the careful patience of a woman who understood that the long game was the only game worth playing. My son, in the end, cooperated with investigators. Mr. Webb had predicted this. He said to me, early on, the person who was most in control of this situation was not your son. I heard what he meant. I sat with it. I still sit with it sometimes on Thursday mornings when the house is quiet. Cassandra accepted a plea agreement. I was not in the courtroom when it was entered. I did not need to be. The night after the plea agreement was finalized, I went out to the backyard and stood under the oak tree for a while. The weather had turned. It was the kind of October evening where the air has that particular smell, leaves and cold, and something that makes you think of things that are finished. I thought about what Evelyn had said in the video, not angry, tired and grateful. I tried those words on myself and found that they fit better than I expected. Not perfectly, but better. My son called the next morning. I answered this time. We talked for 40 minutes, which is longer than we have talked on the phone in probably 10 years. It was not easy. There were silences that lasted too long and things said that were not exactly the right things but were the closest available. He cried toward the end. I did not. I had already used up what I had in the parking lot of Morrison and Webb 4 months earlier, sitting with the engine off, and my wife's voice still in my head. At the end of the call, before we hung up, he said, "She knew, didn't she? She knew everything, and she still." He couldn't finish it. Yes, I said. She did. There was a long pause. She loved you, I said. That was the whole point. I still have the USB drive. It's in the nightstand drawer with her reading glasses. I don't need to watch the video again. I have it the way you have certain things, not in your memory exactly, but somewhere lower than that. Somewhere that doesn't need to be accessed on purpose, that's just there. The way the sound of her key in the front door is still there. Or the way I still reach for the wrong side of the refrigerator when I'm looking for the reading glasses that aren't there anymore. Where are you watching from? I'd like to know, and I want to ask you something. If the person you loved most decided to protect you by keeping a secret, even a hard one, even a years-long one, could you find a way to understand that? I think about that question a lot. I think Evelyn already knew my answer. I think that's why she put the USB in the sewing cabinet and trusted me to find it. She knew me. She used the word knew like it meant something specific. It did. It still does. I keep thinking about the sewing cabinet. Not the USB drive, not the attorney's office, not even the courtroom, just that cabinet. The one Evelyn kept in the corner of the bedroom with the sticky bottom drawer that I'd been meaning to fix for 15 years. She knew I'd never fixed it. She knew Cassandra would open it, decide it was junk, and move on. She counted on exactly that. She hid the most important thing she ever gave me in the one place a person with no patience for ordinary life would never look twice. That's what I've been sitting with. Not the betrayal. That was real and it was deep. But the intelligence of a woman who saw clearly while the rest of us were either too trusting or too greedy to see anything at all. Evelyn didn't have a law degree. She wasn't a financial analyst. What she had was something harder to name and harder to teach. She paid attention for 22 months while she was managing a heart condition and tending a garden and acting to everyone around her like a woman quietly winding down. She was also building something, documenting, dating, signing, moving money in small enough amounts that no one noticed. She found Mr. Mon Webb on her own. She drove herself to that office on her own. She did all of it without telling me. Not because she didn't trust me, but because she understood something about the situation that I wouldn't have understood in time. That my instinct would have been to confront, and confrontation would have burned the evidence before it could protect anyone. She was right. I know she was right because I know myself, and she knew me better than I know myself. That kind of clear-eyed thinking, in the middle of grief and illness and the daily weight of watching someone you love take advantage of what they assume is your weakness. That takes something. It takes the willingness to do the slow, unglamorous work of being right instead of the fast, satisfying work of being loud. Most people, including me, are not built for that. Evelyn was. And then there's my son. I've thought a lot about where his choices came from. He is not a stupid man. But somewhere along the way, he let someone else's priorities replace his own, let convenience and money become more important than the people who raised him, and did not stop himself when stopping was still possible. That's not a mystery. That's what happens when the habit of doing the right thing gets replaced. One small compromise at a time, with the habit of doing the easy thing. You don't notice the distance you've traveled until someone shows you the map. The part that still costs me something. The part I turn over on Thursday mornings when the house is quiet is that Evelyn forgave him before he earned it. She said it twice in that letter because she knew I'd need to read it twice. She was not angry. She was tired and she was clear, and she had already decided how she wanted to finish. Not in bitterness, not in the courtroom, in a garden, and in a letter, and in a video recorded at the kitchen table with afternoon light on her face and her hands folded the way she always folded them. She showed me something I am still learning. That real strength is not the kind that burns everything down to prove a point. It's the kind that builds quietly, protects deliberately, and trusts that the truth, given enough time and enough documentation, will do what shouting never could. I'm still learning it. But I have the USB drive in the nightstand and her reading glasses beside it, and most mornings that's enough to keep going.